And today I've decided to kind of go vegan today, okay? So you don't see me breaking out bacon fat or anything like this today. Just a nice little grapeseed oil. And again, chefs really like this because of that neutral flavor. It can take a real high heat as well. So I'm just gonna dump a little oil on this. Make sure that it's coated inside and out. I'll tilt the camera again. Let's see, Tamara's out there. Good to see you. And I'm oiling up the outside. It's just like being on the, I gotta wash my hands before I show you this. Just like being on the beach. I'm just kind of oiling them up like suntan lotion. Because we're going into a very hot environment. I don't want my squash to get sunburned. Nobody gets me. Mary, good to see you. Good to see you. Long time no see. Okay, let me just tilt this. You can kind of see my squash is a little bit shiny now. It's shiny inside. And the next thing I want to do is, let me just tilt this down a tiny bit here. Ooh, I got to tilt it more. I need a cameraman. This is tricky. There we go. Yeah, you can see that. Next thing I want to do here is I'm going to add a little bit of water down here so I don't brown the surface of this so much. A little browning is cool, but I don't want it totally caramelized here. I want kind of a nice bright color on these veggies, okay? So I'm going to add a little bit of water to the bottom of this. And it's a very common little chef trick to do that. And this is one of the few veggies that we'll do this with. If I'm doing roasted zucchini or something, it's not going to develop much color at all if I throw water in there. This is going to cook for a little while. This will cook for a little while, and that water will evaporate away, and then it'll just kind of be sitting on that little oily surface that we generated earlier, okay? And so we haven't even started talking about beans yet. I just needed to get that in the oven cooking, or else I wouldn't be eating tonight, okay? So that's just one of the things I wanted to do. Another thing that I want to do is I'm actually going to start a pot of beans right now, and then I guess I'll start all of my beans right now. Let me show you the beans that I've got here. First of all, I've got some little pinquito beans. I cooked some of these off about a week ago for a high school class, and I really like them. They're like baby pinto beans. They're like small ones and they cook up pretty quickly. I like a bean that cooks quickly. Another bean that I have today isn't a true bean. These are lentils, okay? So I brought lentils, and I have to say, if you are looking for a bean, lentils are your friend. They cook up super, super quick. If you don't have a lot of time on your hands, heck, you can have beans done, lentils done in probably about 20 minutes or so. Whereas a regular bean, you guys know, even if you soak them or something like that, they take upwards to an hour or so to cook off, right? And so I'm gonna be doing some lentils today, and I've also got these little piquintos that I have soaked here, okay? I'm gonna talk about soaking and all of that stuff. Cooking lesson isn't starting yet, but I need to get these guys on the fire so we have a common frame of reference as we're talking about cooking, okay? So I've got 2 pots on the stove here. They are both filled with cold water, okay? I want to start my beans cold, and so I'm going to go ahead. I've got the piquintos. They are soaked, and I'm going to pour off that water real quick. You can hear it. Trust me, I'm pouring off water. And then I'm going to drop them in one of my pots. Get rid of that. And then I've got my lentils. And again, these lentils, I'm using green lentils today, sometimes called French lentils or French green lentils. Very, very inexpensive, and they cook up really, really quickly, okay? And I'm gonna drop them in some cold water as well. I'm gonna add a few things to this, okay? What we're gonna talk about today mostly is cooking a neutral pot of beans. Like when you buy a can of beans, it doesn't taste like chili already or something like that. I want a neutral pot of beans, but I do want a little bit of background flavor to it, okay? So I've got 2 pots of beans with just water. There's no salt in there, and you won't see me working salt into this. We're gonna talk about why in just a little while, okay? Another thing I wanna work in are just some background aromatics, okay? What do you suppose might taste good with beans, just as a background flavor? How about a little garlic, okay? I've got a few garlic cloves here. I'm gonna pull up. So I'll go ahead and cut the bottom off of those guys. We'll peel them, and I'm just gonna smash them and throw them in the pot. what I always call the old French housewife trick, or the old French grandma trick, right? For those French grandmas, you know, they just throw garlic in everything, right? You got a cold in France, you know, it's just like, hey, garlic will fix it, right? It's just like in Asia, your Asian grandma is telling you to have ginger. Ginger will cure anything. Oh, your tummy upset? Have some ginger. You got a headache? Have some ginger, right? Garlic is the French equivalent, okay? So I've got a couple of cloves here. I'm just gonna smash them and drop them in the pot. And I always say, whoever gets the garlic clove is the winner. They are just gonna almost melt into the pot, basically, into that pot of beans. Aniko, good to see you again. Christian, good to see you. Let's see, a few other aromatics. I'm just gonna throw in a piece of celery, just like that, okay? Nothing fancy here. It's like a bay leaf, you can pull it out later. I am also gonna do a little carrot. I peeled this up ahead of time, you guys don't need to see me peel it. And I'm gonna throw a piece of carrot in each one of these pots, the lentils and my regular beans. Wipe down here. And then finally, I've got half an onion here, and I'm gonna split that between the two pots. I had cleaned I needed half an onion the other day, and so I just kind of saved that. And the root is intact on this onion. I kind of talked about that in a couple of other my classes. It holds the onion together. It kind of helps us. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that in half to where and keeping that root intact on both sides. I'll peel that, and then I'm just going to throw that quarter of an onion into each pot as well. Okay. Again, these aren't going to throw big flavors at you. What it's going to throw at you is like background, body, you know, that kind of a thing. If you just eat these beans plain, it's like something's missing, man. What does it need? Hey, it needed those aromatics to give it a little bit of body and you know, that middle ground that we all like. Okay. All right. Hey, good to see you. All right, so I'm going to kick both of these on. And if they start to come to a boil and I don't see it, please shout it out, okay? I don't know if you guys will see that any better. One more thing I want to throw in there, our trusty bay leaf. I'm going to throw in a few bay leaves as well. And again, just like everything else, I'm not breaking them up or anything. It's not ground bay leaf or something, right? I want to be able to pick these out later. So I'm throwing maybe 2 bay leaves in each pot. So right now, you didn't see me measure anything. I just threw in some beans, some water. I threw in like a quarter of an onion in each pot, about 3 ounces of carrot, about 3 ounces of celery, and garlic clove. And that's all we got. Super, super simple, okay? Okay, so my pots are on. I think I can start talking about beans now, okay? Now, before I really get into the cooking of the beans, I want to talk about why I love beans so much, okay? And this goes back to like just one of my big philosophies. There are so many people out there that are just like, wow, I never have time to cook, and they wind up going out and buying food somewhere at a restaurant or a fast food joint, and they wind up spending their lives eating processed food like that. I'm trying to turn that around. I'm trying to get more people to understand that, hey, cooking's really, really simple, and it's not time consuming if you organize it properly, okay? What I usually do is, hey, I work all week too, and I'm a busy guy, right? I get to the end of the week and I get a couple of days off sometimes, right? And I will usually take about 2 hours out of one of my days off, and I cook off something like a pot of beans and a pot of rice or something like that. And now I've got this neutral bean and this neutral rice. I don't want to start them out as like chili beans or something like that, because I'm going to get sick of chili by the time the week is over. And that's the idea here. I cook for 2 hours on Sunday and I can eat it all week long, right? If I cook these beans off neutrally, I can make chili beans on Monday with them. I can make Italian beans the next day. I can make curry beans and rice the next day. I can just take it any direction I want, right? And so that is a very, very common thing that I do, is just keep a neutral bean and a neutral grain in my refrigerator. So if I'm busy, I don't have time for work, hey, 10 minutes later, I warm up some beans, and all I do, hey, toss in a spoonful of pesto and some tomatoes and, you know, stuff like that, and boom, I've got Italian beans and rice, you know, and it's delicious, and I'm eating 10 minutes later, right? Just going out to fast food every day, think of the time driving there, standing in line, picking it up and bringing it home and eating it and everything. I think that you spend a couple hours a week preparing something that you can eat all week long. And it doesn't have to be beans. It could be a lasagna or a casserole or something like that, a pot of soup, anything that'll get you through the week. And you'll find that you're actually saving time in your life and you're actually eating better, okay? And this is what most people are trying to do in their lives, is eat better, right? Let's see, I got a question right there. I like to cheat a little when I make beans. I use a pressure cooker, 37 minutes from start to finish, no soaking. Lots of people talk about pressure cookers with their beans and everything. I have never used a pressure cooker in my life, not a home pressure cooker. I've only used these big pressure steamers in hotels and things like that got this giant door on them and clamp down like a submarine. You twist this big wheel and turn them on and they crank the steam, right? But I've never used a pressure cooker. And also, I'm all about teaching very, very basic stuff, right? Not everybody's got a pressure cooker, so I am cooking with the bare minimum, right? When I teach pasta dough, I'm not using a mixer. I'm showing my students how to do it on a table by hand, like 8-year-old Italian girls learn at their grandma's knee, right? That's what I want to get across to people. The simplest, most straightforward techniques that they can use in their kitchen every day, and it works universally, whether you got a pressure cooker or any special equipment or not, okay? Good to see you, Ms. Laura. Awesome, good to see you. That reminds me, I think I'll take a little sip again because let's face it, people, this is happy hour. I think the sun's going past the yard arm here. Sometimes I use my Instant Pot, but it sometimes breaks up the beans. And you know, I didn't want to cap on the pressure cooker thing, but that's one of the things I would not really want for my beans is a pressure cooker, because I feel like it breaks up my beans. I want my beans to kind of gently simmer. Every time somebody suggests using a pressure cooker or Instapot or something, what's in the back of my mind is you're busting your beans up. And my desired result for a bean is a nice, beautiful whole bean. It looks like a jewel. Every individual bean is perfect, and I bite into it. The outside is tender, the inside is smooth and creamy. That's what I'm looking for, right? And so I agree. I feel like Instapots, pressure cookers, they're just going to knock your beans to pieces. So that's another reason why I like the pot kind of a discussion, okay? Awesome. So let's see. I have my 2 pots going. I have a squash in the oven. Let's start talking about bean technique. Not really technique, more like a series of tips, okay? I call this never trust a bean. Let me get it up here. I need to see my notes. Okay. So I keep using the word bean, but we really should be using the word legume, because not all of our legume type things fit in the bean family. Think about my lentils, for instance. They're not really a bean, that's a legume. It's a different animal, right? Another one that a lot of people might not think about are split peas. That's another type of a legume, right? All of these dried peas and things like that, they all kind of work in a similar fashion here. Okay? A legume is a plant that creates these big giant seeds that come in pods, and when you're working with fresh beans, you got to shuck them out of the pods and then start cooking them. By the way, if you're ever cooking fresh beans out of the pod, they haven't been dried yet, you can omit that whole soaking thing and all of that other stuff, and they cook up pretty darn quickly compared to like a dried bean, right? But a dried bean is great because, hey, we're in quarantine kitchen and I can buy tons and tons of beans and just have them in the cupboard, and they're not going to go bad. Same with grains. And if you've got some beans and some grains, hey, that's going to keep you alive for a little while until things, if things really go bad, right? And so, again, that's why I kind of wanted to talk about beans today. I'm also going to throw a grain at you today as well, okay? Let's see. As I said earlier, legumes are super, super high in protein, and so if you are a vegetarian, you want to incorporate beans, legumes into your diet. You almost have to, right? Different types of legumes. We talked about, these little pinquitos and everything. We talked about the lentils. Other ideas. There are a lot of beans in the kidney family, and they're all shaped like, a kidney-shaped swimming pool or whatever, right? Tons and tons of beans in that family. The pintos fall in that family as well. Let's see, the peas that I mentioned, lentils, lima beans, hey, that's a bean, right? Chickpeas, another word is garbanzo beans. Fava beans are another one, and you might be familiar with those little red beans from Asia called adzuki beans. This is what we see if you've ever had like a bao or something like that with that sweet red bean paste inside. They're using those little adzuki beans, and they're kind of similar in size to the